Welcome to video number 5, the last video of this learning resource. I am Jonathan, Director of Programs with Next Gen Men.
I am Ali, Youth Program Coordinator at Next Gen Men.
Change up the order. Love it. And I'm Stephanie, Manager of Youth Programs and Partnerships at Next Gen Men. I'm feeling unhinged because we're in our last video. Sorry.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, 2 thoughts on that. Number 1, I was like, oh, you know what? I just realized in our very first video, we learned, I should say, Jonathan, over to you, Stephanie, and then we forgot that. And like every single time we probably have had this moment of indecision about who's talking next. Secondly, yeah, like we've worked on this for like at least half a year, if not longer. So it is a pretty big accomplishment. We are recording, you might have noticed, these last 2 videos back to back. It's a Friday. But we're just amped. We're like, let's get it done, and let's just dive straight into what we're calling the system of empowerment. Anybody have any thoughts before I jump in? Okay, let's do this. What I want people to know is that from the very beginning, the server has been built through co-creation with youth. So, they're the ones who told us in the first place to try out Discord. They're the ones who suggested and collaborated on the creation of so many of the features that we've talked about in all of these videos in our systems of care. Everything from the code of conduct to the event board to the Minecraft server to the support channel, like all of these things have been young people suggesting, young people creating, and collaborating with us. In a very real way, it's their community. We're just the stewards of it. Like, we're just helping hold that space. And I know we keep talking about this, but like we've seen that boys really rise to the occasion. Like, they want to be part of the solution. They want to be seen like they've got potential, right? They want to be listened to like they've got expertise. And they want to feel what it feels like to be a leader. Like, this is something that we see every day with the young people that we work with. That's not disconnected from the Circle of Courage framework that we've also talked about in every single video. The last core need that we haven't touched on yet is the spirit of generosity. The spirit of generosity is about that desire for purpose, that desire to, make decisions and take action that positively impacts the people around you. And to know that, like, in your role in what you've done, that you've made a difference. So the way we operationalize the spirit of purpose or the spirit of generosity is through a framework. I know we talk a lot about frameworks, but hopefully it's not annoying, and it is helpful to know that like we're basing what we do on research and on expertise. But yeah, there's one more framework for you. It's called the Ladder of Youth Participation. We usually refer to it as the Ladder of Youth Engagement. It comes from a guy named Roger Hart in the late 1990s. Essentially, on the bottom of the ladder is, actually, Ali, do you want to quickly tap in and explain the term adultism? Because I know I learned that first from you.
Oh, interesting. Adultism is this idea. It kind of connects to ageism. So adultism connects to this idea of where if you're an adult, if you're an older person, by default, you know better. By default, I should tell you what to do because you're younger, I am older, and because I'm older, I've experienced more, so therefore I know more.
Exactly. And so at the bottom of this ladder is that adultism, or or tokenism would be another word for like putting youth into positions where they're being tokenized or they're acting as decoration for a project or an initiative, but they're actually involved in its creation, or they're not consulted or seen as like collaborators in that project. Towards the middle of the ladder is sort of consulting without shared decision making. So, talking to them, but not necessarily positioning them as shared decision makers. And at the top of the ladder, which is where we try to center ourselves, is what Hart calls youth adult partnerships. The idea being that whatever's happening is being initiated by young people, and that those young people then share decisions alongside adults, so that the projects empower young people while also enabling them to access the expertise and lived experience of the adults. So it's It's, on when I first heard about the ladder, I figured at the top of the ladder was like completely youth led, like adults hands off. And actually, adults are still part of the process because we don't want to be just like leaving kids out, resourceless. Like we want to be walking alongside them and sharing the project with them. So that's what we try to do with NGM Alliance. And firstly, we try to do it because, as hopefully has been made clear, like we couldn't possibly create an engaging and active Discord server without the active participation and co-creation of the young people within it, right? Like that just seems like a given. We couldn't do it. We don't know what we don't know, right? And like, for example, I had basically never played Minecraft before. I mean, I had played it a couple of times, but I had never made a Minecraft server. Like those kinds of things, like young people, like what they have asked for involved us educating ourselves and understanding because we wouldn't have even known, right, to begin with. So that's one of the main things. But secondly, again, as we position ourselves as a values-based organization that is like not just focused on creating like, healthier or positive experiences for boys, but also orienting them towards their own leadership within the movement for gender justice. That shared decision making and that sense of capability and influencing community is actually really important as well. We want them to understand what it feels like to step into a leadership position, to, like, for example, to define and uphold community norms and values, because then they can take risks with their peers. Then they can be curious and empathetic and compassionate towards people, but it gives them a sense of capability. And what we need in the world are boys who feel capable, right? Young men who feel capable. Not to shut down, like, school workshops. We do a lot of like one-off school workshops ourselves. But often in existing like programs, like the school or the classroom already has a predefined set of rules, and expectations, or a sports team, for example, already exists within a culture. But within this online community, it's actually been built from the ground up, which again, and continues to be, which again positions boys as the ones upholding the community norms, the ones deciding for themselves, what do we think about mental health and well-being? What do we think about objectification and sexism? What do we think about hierarchy and aggression? And they get to decide for themselves. And that is such an incredibly powerful thing because within a microcosm of community, boys really feel that sense of power, right? Wow, I can actually shift, right? The norms around me. I can actually influence my peers. That's what we need in terms of shifting the needle on things like gender-based violence and violence against girls and women. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give boys the opportunity to step more fully into the best versions of themselves, and we're doing it through the system of empowerment.
The way which we do this, and to further expand, to make the uniqueness, and to make the effectiveness of the server, is we kind of do it in maybe 3 different mediums. The first one is a channel within the server called Suggestions Channel. So Suggestions Channel is pretty self-explanatory. It is this idea of where youth who can use a command in the server, wherever they are, and it's like, and offer an idea that they want to see, want they removed, or want changed within Next Gen Men Alliance. So the reason why we have this in place is it's an opportunity where you can upvote and downvote. So it's not me, Jonathan, or Stephanie saying like, oh, okay, this person said they want this. I like this idea, so we're going to do it. The reality is if this person has an idea, the idea goes to the server and everyone in the community has an opportunity to voice their opinion on said thing. And depending on the upvotes or the downvotes, it's an opportunity for us to change whatever is looking to be changed. So an example that I can think that's a bit predominant is since Next Gen Men Alliance's inception, back, 5 years ago, there's been continuous server name changes. The one that I was a part of is when we went from Next Gen Men Boys Plus Club to Next Gen Men Alliance. So that was a moment where many youth were voicing to us facilitators like, hey, we're not really resonating with the name of the server. We're not really into it. We kind of want to change to it. And this was an opportunity for the 3 of us to look back into the community, figure out what they are looking for, what the name resonates with them, create a system of voting, democracy of some kind, and whatever the youth decide to end up with, that's the name that we go with. Another example of how we are empowering our youth at more of a systematic, greater scale is with our Youth Advisory Council. We ran a Youth Advisory Council back in 2024, and we're now running one for 2026. So Youth Advisory Council is us facilitators possibly having an idea of some kind. It's like, hey, I thought about this one time, right? So we take these ideas and we pass it to our Youth Advisory Councils. We ask them, what do you think about this? We have long, thought-provoking discussions of what this could look like. and where the trajectory of the server can go. One predominant example that we mentioned in our system of connection is our UNC space, which is our post-secondary alumni space. So there was that little bit of an age discrepancy. What does it feel to be like a 13-year-old on the space, and what does it look like for an 18-year-old to be on the space? So obviously there's a big difference in connection. There's a big difference in interests and passions and things, those sorts. So hearing out the youth advisory council, that is where the idea of having a post-secondary alumni space came from. And speaking of alumni, a lot of these youth, or at least some of these youth, feel a strong connection of what it may. I'm gonna backtrack. I'm not gonna go into that just yet. There's actually one more that I thought of, which is probably one of the most important ones, is those spontaneous moments of empowerment that youth are kind of asking for or want to steward of some kind. And these are moments where it's not living in suggestions, it's not living in the youth advisory council, it's honestly living in the small messages within the server, where one youth or a band of youth is very passionate about something and they want to do something about it. The example that I could think of, and there's probably thousands of them, but it's Pokemon Showdown. So Pokemon, all three of us, we're not really into. Me, I've gone into a little bit more, but it's like 3 or 4 youth who are like super, super into Pokemon Showdown. They wanted to do a campaign. They wanted to do a continuous event. They wanted to have something big and elaborate for it. So instead of us being like, well, all 3 of us don't know anything about Pokemon, all 3 of us don't want to play Pokemon. Instead, it was like, that is such a cool idea. That is such a niche idea. We love your passion. We love your enthusiasm. We're going to learn what it is, even though it's probably, I kid you not, the most difficult game on the planet. But we're going to learn what it is. We're going to try to master it with you. We're going to play with you, and we're going to be part of that journey with you. So that's a moment of where there was something that they were looking for, and it was a responsibility of us facilitators to empower what that looking was for. And the moment that I was going to say, but now I will say, is youth moderation. So once these youth who are, aging out of the program and getting to a different stage of their lives, as they move on to their journey, there are moments where they still are feeling some sort of belonging or connection within the server. And they want to use those belongings and connections to kind of pave the way or lead the way or work with the youth that are still within the server, learning from their experiences, learning from their time at Next Gen Men Alliance to show back and give back to what was offered to them at one time and create that community that they once were a part of, but now in a leadership role. So us facilitators, we do this in a medium where we empower, but we also offer safeguards. So back in the system of safety, I'm sure Jonathan and Stephanie probably talked about the conflict resolution framework, the confidentiality chart. So these are offerings that we give to our alumni youth to be youth moderators to bring this back to the youth, so they can give a little bit of insight and connection that us 3 can't really offer, but they themselves, who've once been in their place, can offer instead of us.
One thing that we often talk about and that Ali brought to us is this idea of two-eyed seeing, which is an indigenous way of knowing, where you have 2 eyes and you can see things with different perspectives. And obviously we, as adults running the space, have a perspective, but the young people within our space who are now getting older and are past 18, they have a different perspective because they were a part of the community from the get-go. And so having them come into this alumni program, they have a perspective that we will never have, which is this two-way, seeing. And their moderator names became Orange. So we were saying, you guys are now Orange. And, what does that mean? And what kind of perspectives and insights and ideas can you bring to the table? But also you can understand, like, if, say, you're, moderating a conflict, for example, how would you have wanted to be interacted with from a moderator perspective? So they bring so much richness and knowledge, and we make sure that there's training set out for them and that we're getting police checks for them, for example, and following all these, safety protocols to make sure that they can be a part of our community in the fullest way possible. And it's been the best having them involved. It's great. Another part of our system of empowerment is evaluation, because sure, you can, have a youth program going on, but if you're not evaluating it, how do you know what impact you're creating or how it is being utilized by the young people? what's working, what's not working, all these different pieces. And so we're incredibly proud of the evaluation work that we've been doing on NGM Alliance, to really understand and hear directly from the youth within our community about how our server has impacted them. So recently we did 18 interviews, we did photo voice activities, and our report highlighting all of this rich detail and insight is out now. It's called Creating Community Online, an Evidence Base for Next Gen Men's Discord Server for Boys. So feel free to check that out. But just super high level, I will say that, we found that Next Gen Men Alliance supports youth mental health. It builds a strong sense of belonging and connection, and helps young people develop more positive attitudes and the confidence to challenge harmful behavior. Really demonstrating that safe, youth centered online spaces can be like a powerful tool in prevention. And I was thinking, I could tell you all about the ways in which I think that the server has impacted our young people and empowered them to change or to shift, or empowered opportunities for them. However, I think that the young people sharing that themselves is even more powerful. So I'm going to read some quotes from youth directly in our server that participated in our evaluation. So this greater sense of confidence and self-esteem, Lior, who's 16, said, through talking with the people on the server, it has kind of helped to view myself better and have a higher self-esteem. I used to think negatively about myself anytime I was too weak to do something. And now it's not that I'm too weak, it's just that I can't do it yet. Or it's like I messed up this one time and it doesn't mean that I'm bad. Or this is from Neymar, who's 17. I'm more friendly now. I'm more able to make connections with people. I don't like talking with people or making new friends. And Next Gen Men is an environment that really encourages that. I've learned a ton from a lot of the people in there and how they interact with others. Or we're empowering young people to build mental health strategies for themselves. So Christian, who's 16, said, I want someone to understand how the server has uncluttered my mind mentally. It has helped me find strategies for dealing with a low point in my life. And finally, challenging harmful attitudes and, making different choices, or showing to yourself that you have the capacity to be different. Silas, who's 16, said, the server definitely steered me in the right direction, because I used to be quite the nihilist and not the most polite person. I didn't understand the important qualities of being nice to people who sometimes may come off as they don't deserve it. So let's just say someone insulted me beforehand, I would just send them their address or threaten them because I thought it was funny and that they were valueless since they were annoying. Versus now, I've definitely matured and I just would never consider it. So it's empowering young people and providing opportunity for them to see that there is an avenue and a world of possibility in terms of how they can show up for themselves and for each other. And really, our space is like the incubator of that, a place where they can experiment, try new things, fail. It's okay. Making sure that, we're helping them figure out what do they value in themselves, who do they want to become, and making sure that we really do see them for how they want to be seen and what they care about deeply within themselves. I will say, in terms of evaluation, we're always constantly looking at how our server is doing. And so each week we look at the numbers of people messaging, how many messages, how many people are messaging, how many people are in our events, how many events are we having, how many hours are we spending together, in our events. We're constantly looking at these and trying new strategies and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And so constantly having that, those metrics to bounce back to is like incredibly important for us, especially as we continue to have more people join our server, and figuring out how can we continue to get them through the cycle of safety, engagement, connection, and empower them as they get older as well. And with that, I will open the floor to the both of you.
When I had you open like as a big screen, Stephanie, and I could see you then, but now that I've got all three of us on the screen, you are just a gray box. So you could try disconnecting and reconnecting your video and see if that makes a difference. But if it doesn't, then you'll just be a beautiful gray box. And I don't know if it's your internet or mine. Yeah, I distracted myself by saying that. Something I was noticing as we talked this through is essentially there's like a continuum of empower, like there's a continuum at play here that with the evaluation stuff, for example, we're um, trying to understand what, like you said, what's working and what's not. And that might be through like a formal, evaluation, uh, like methodology, right? But it also is in our weekly check-ins about engagement and, what are we noticing? And then there's also the like youth stepping in to post a suggestion to like, spearhead a game that they want to play and that kind of thing. And then there's the much more formal, the youth advisory council. We've had young people speak on panels, get published in a magazine. There's a bunch of different ways that young people have really stepped into that. And yeah, like I said at the start, like they want to contribute to the community. Like we regularly, each one of us regularly gets young people asking for leadership positions. They want to be moderators. They want to be staff. They want to, showcase an idea that they have. And then they get to kind of immediately see the results of how they contribute. Any other thoughts? I jumped straight in. So any other thoughts from you, Ali?
Nothing profound. All I can say is that from the experiences that I've had on Next Gen Alliance or my personal life, empowerment goes so far, and not just in us just offering something else to young people, but it goes so far in their lives as well too. What they can create from it, what can happen with what they're allowed to do or what we allow them to explore. It means a lot to them. So the more we can create these opportunities to young people, the more it has such a foundational change in what they see and how they think of themselves.
It's kind of funny, but now both of your cameras are down. So it's clearly my internet. So I'll conclude by saying it's kind of funny, within other contexts, it's kind of easy to think of yourself as the adult expert. Like I've taught in a classroom and I know what it feels like to be like, well, I know this curriculum, right? Or I know this like stage of behavior or whatever it might be, but with the online context, like we are kind of inevitably learning, right? We are inevitably being taught by young people what we don't know. And so I think from that default, at the like I said, like at the origin of the project, we kind of like immediately stepped into that collaborative and co-creation, co-creative, I don't know if that's a word, co-creative space. You guys can't say anything left else because your video stopped working because my internet is trying to tell us we've been working too hard on this Friday. I know I've said this, but I want to just like hammer home the name of the server's description, the event strategy, the games that we play, the channels that we have, like every single thing that we do has been defined by our young people. And the reason I wanted to kind of finish by circling back to that is because, I had a youth organization reach out because they are interested in fostering online community. And I asked a couple of questions. I don't say this as a critique. First of all, just the fact that they were curious about this and exploring it, like sending them lots of love. And alongside that, like some of my questions, let's go, well, who is it for? And what might those young people be looking for? And how might they be interested in this community taking shape? And they didn't really have those answers. And so my first piece of advice was go consult with the young people in your community. Understand, before you even start to create something, understand what they might be interested in. And what you might find is they're actually really interested in building it with you, right? And not just having it serve to them, but being active participants in the creation of that project. So that kind of brings us full circle, right? Because we're bringing this video series to an end. And if you haven't yet, and you're starting to feel a little bit inspired, I think your next step could be talk to the young people that you serve and find out what they're doing online, find out what's missing in their lives, and especially in their online lives. And and then carry that conversation forward. This is kind of weird because literally both of your Maybe I'll hang up the call and I'll try to join back. We'll see if that makes a difference. And you got to hear my awesome entry music, and that solved the problem. So, okay, so now you both have a chance. Any final thoughts before we end our video series?
That was awesome. I guess my final note is this. If you are somebody working with young people in person, and maybe you're noticing, because this is what I'm hearing from people in in-person programming, that boys, and young men are not showing up and they're not there. They are living increasingly online. We know that, and we know that they're there, and we have a large group of them in our server. And NGM Alliance is a model. We're not saying that we can have every kid ever to come join our space. That's just not feasible. That's not going to work. But what we do need is other youth serving organizations, people who care about the well-being of young people, to sort of come on board and take on this model as a thing and a way to engage with those boys who are not showing up anymore. Because we know that they need adults who care about them to be seeing them for who they want to be, who they want to become, who are, watching the process of them getting older, them, messing up, making mistakes, them navigating relationships, dating, mental health struggles, all these different things. So it's really important that, anyways, I'll just leave with that, is that if you're thinking about it, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. This learning resource is really like a starting place to sort of build it out, but we're more than happy to help in any way if you need.
Anything from you, Ali?
That was beautifully said, Stephanie. I guess the one thing I could offer is I've had a few conversations with people who have young people in their lives, and to me, what it sounded like their biggest worry was taking a chance to learn about something new, or being in a world that they've never been in before. Which, sure, it can be intimidating. Discord can be an intimidating place. Playing Pokemon can be very intimidating. But all I would say is try to push yourself to try something new. Try to push yourself to live in the world that these youth are living in. Because just being a part of their journey, just for a small instance, makes such a huge difference in their lives. So if it means anything to you, just giving it a chance, showing curiosity, and asking young people for help is probably the best thing you can do. You don't need to be the master at anything, but you need to be really good at asking how to be good at something from these young people. So that's what I could offer to you.
Well, thank you for listening to our video resource on creating safe and impactful online communities for young people, or with young people. That brings us to an end. But yeah, it's been a total pleasure. First of all, sharing these video recordings, but also the months and years of development that brought us here. It's just been a really, really impactful thing for us. So thank you for being part of this project. Like Stephanie said, don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything that we can do to help. And with that, we will sign off for our final time.
Oh, yeah.